the type of cross-border group and approach that's now been proposed, and we very much support that. You know, for the last few years, the political institutions in the North have been on the verge of collapse. And let's remember that the heart of the current contrived crisis is the murder of two men, Jock Davison and Kevin McGuigan. And the Fianna Fáil leader's contribution to this crisis was an idiotic call for the suspension of the political institutions. Now, the basis of the very welcome recommencement of the talks today is the publication of a report by the British and another from the Garda Commissioner. Some elements of these reports have been seized upon by opponents of Sinn Féin, not least yourself, Taoiseach, and the leader of Fianna Fáil. So I want to deal with two aspects of this. One is that Sinn Féin is totally and absolutely opposed to criminality of all kinds. And we stand with communities across this island and with the police services against criminality. And we've paid a price for that. My home has been regularly targeted with bomb alerts. I and other Sinn Féin representatives are under active death threats. That's a matter of fact. We've had property attacks. We have had one young man, Frank McCabe Jr., blinded in one eye because of his parties. Our parties and his family stand against criminality. So this isn't an academic exercise for us, and this isn't an electorally driven point scoring. We put our lives on the line against those who are engaging in the name of republicanism and others in criminality. Secondly, like all the rest of you, Sinn Féin is accountable to one grouping. That's the electorate. They're the people who give us our mandate. Our leadership is the Ard Comhairle. It's elected democratically annually at our Ardash. And we're not accountable to any other group or organisation. Now, the business of making peace is challenging. The business of societal change is challenging. But that's our priority as a party, consistently and constantly, alongside our effort to build genuine Republican alternatives to austerity and building support for a united Ireland. And led by Martin McGuinness, we will engage in these talks positively. We will deal with all issues, including those cited by yourself and the Fianna Fáil leader, to build a real future.
Sorry, Deputy, put your question.
So what I'm asking you, Taoiseach, and I've asked you this many times, will you prioritise your engagement with the British Prime Minister with the objective of stabilising and sustaining the political institutions set up under the Good Friday Agreement?
Thank you. Taoiseach.
And the answer to that question is yes, of course. At every opportunity, spoke to him last night about this matter. I accept, Deputy Adams, that you have been the target of intimidation and attempted assault, and I've condemned that unreservedly. I expect that Deputy First Minister McGuinness will deal with questions in respect of the report from the three members based on the Chief Constable and the PSNI. And there are matters there that need to be dealt with, and the talks that are currently going on is the forum in which that can take place, and all of the representatives are there now. Yes, peace is always challenging, and that's why we've made a point of this government that the resources and the facilities be made available to the Gardaí to do their job. Now, we had the murder of Adrian Donoghue, we've had the murder of Tony Golden. Government have decided quite some time ago to reopen the Garda Training College in Templemore. With 600 recruits coming through that next year. Government have put up 27-30 million for new vehicles and more to follow. Today the Minister for Justice is announcing an extensive Garda programme in terms of proper facilities, buildings and infrastructure for the Gardaí to do their job, and the Commissioner has made changes in terms of extra personnel in the border area following the murder of Garda Golden. I think that I take the evidence of CAB and the two joint task forces which have been working very effectively over the last number of years to the extent of fuel laundering, cigarette smuggling and other acts of criminality. I'm glad to hear you say that you support these efforts completely. And as I said to Deputy Martin, if it comes from these talks that there be a request or agreement or a proposal that there be a revamped or different joint agency resourced and financed by both governments to deal with criminality in all its forms, well then I've a very open mind to that. Your party has come under some scrutiny in respect of claims of illegality and illegal activity, either in respect of safe houses and sexual abuse and property-based programmes indicating access to extraordinary levels of finance. And you're the President, that's for you to answer. So in that sense, the answer to your question is yes. I'm happy to engage with the British Government and with the Prime Minister directly as often as needs be in respect of the issues that need to be sorted out here.
Thank you. Deputy Adams, 1 minute.
Respect, Taoiseach, a 15-minute phone call every so often with the British Prime Minister isn't enough. And you know I've said this to you, that it needs a consistent strategic involvement on an ongoing basis. I deplore, as I have here and in the constituency, the killings of Adrian Donoghue and of Tony Golden, of course. One could not do otherwise. But let's not blame Republicans on the failure of the state to tackle the type of crime that's been visited in urban and rural areas, not least in the border counties. My constituency has been starved of Garda. Garda numbers have been cut by this government, and I welcome the fact that that has to some degree been rectified. But I make the point again that our party, the Sinn Féin party, no other organisation, we're the only party which is engaged in Republican activism and in the Republican struggle.
Question,
and we are wedded. We are wedded to peaceful and democratic means. And by the way, it was us who forged out a peaceful and democratic way to achieve Republican and democratic objectives. Now, I'm finishing, John Cordia. All parties have a responsibility to tackle criminality. And I won't take weasel words from you saying you welcome that I'm against criminality.
Sorry,
you know I'm against criminality. You know this party is against criminality. You know that. And what we need to do is to make sure that those who commit crimes against the community, against the state, whatever part of the island it happens in, are brought before the courts. And let the courts, not this dull chamber, make their judgment on all of this. And there are pressing issues. Tory cuts. Did you raise that with the British Prime Minister? Attacks on working families, on welfare, dealing with the legacy of the past. The very people who produced this report also brought in a veto to stop the families of victims of British terrorism from looking and finding out what happened to their loved ones. So we will work positively, Concordia, with all the political parties, with the two governments, but as co-equal guarantor. Say this to you many times. You're the Taoiseach. As co-equal guarantor of the Good Friday and other agreements, will you engage with the British Prime Minister with the required and constant focus and consistency?
Thank you. Taoiseach.
I will talk to the British Prime Minister as often as is necessary. I've said to him, and we both agreed, that the responsibility devolved to the elected representatives of Northern Ireland. This was their request. This is what has been granted. This is their responsibility. These talks now have dragged on since after Christmas of last year, and they've had difficulties up and down in respect of welfare reform and other issues. Now we have the talks about arising from the comments of the PSNI Chief Constable, that report and the report from the Garda Commissioner. So, is Paddy McGahan wrong? Is Maria Cahill wrong? Yeah. Is there when you say anybody out there who has information about these things, bring them to the notice of the Garda or the PSNI? Well, as the President of your party, you know many of the people who live in the border area. It's a close-knit community. It's so close. It's actually so close, Deputy. It's actually so close.
Sorry, please.
It's actually so close that nobody speaks out. Nobody will speak out because the message is out. If you speak out, we will deal with you.
Thank you.
Now, when you say we're against criminality in all its forms, there are a range of things there that you need to deal with as president of your party, and I hope you do. I hope that the talks in Belfast today will bear fruit. As I said, if there's a request for a different form of joint force or joint action group to deal with cross-border criminality in all its forms, then I won't be opposed to it. I'd like to see that it would come from the representatives of all the people, north and south, who are involved in those discussions now.
Thank you. Deputy Donnelly.